There we go. That's been confirmed. Okay. Um, this slide I was going to do anyway, but it was really prompted by the less than pleasant comment that I got on Murfield Matters, going, well, who do you think you are just because you've been to this presentation in Manchester makes you think that you're some kind of expert. And I'm not. I'm not an expert in this. Um, so I did want to let you know who I was. Some people have joined today. You know who I am. You might not know fully what I know about the ADHD side of it. So this is kind of a coverall, really. So let me just come out of that. There we are. Um, I feel like this is one of my biggest credentials. I am a mum of two neurodiverse children, um, one of which will be joining me later on. Poppy has dyslexia. She has Erlen syndrome, which is the visual stress. And she was diagnosed with ADHD in December last year, and it was life-changing. I've always been aware of ADHD as a neurodiversity and a comorbidity of dyslexia. Um, but and it's been on my radar, and it's always something that I will look out for when I'm doing my dyslexia assessments and diagnoses. Um, and I know of the traits that dyslexia has, that ADHD also has. And it's a case of me trying to unpick which is which is actually quite challenging. But ever since Poppy got her diagnosis, it's opened up a whole new world to me, especially relating to girls and ADHD and adults with ADHD as well. I'm the dog mum of what I believe are two and a half neurodiverse dogs. They never remember anything. They're impatient for any snacks that I want to give them. And I put two and a half because although I do have three dogs, two of them are joined at the hip. So I regard them as being two and a half. I am a teacher by trade. I taught in a high school, in two high schools, for my troubles over the years, and then I left, spend more time with my own children, but couldn't quite leave education alone, and it's brought me down this path. Um, I do teach. I teach about 71 students, which surprised me when I counted them up the other day. But I work 7 days a week and try and help as many people as I can. I am a dyslexia specialist and diagnostician. I do dyslexia specialist lessons, and when I'm not teaching, I'm diagnosing or writing reports. It endlessly fascinates me. I'm a dyscalculia and Erlen screener. Dyscalculia, if anybody is not too sure, it's the dyslexia equivalent for maths. I don't diagnose it, but I screen for it. Um, and Erlen's is visual stress. Helen Erlen is the person who discovered it. Um, and it's a comorbidity of dyslexia, but it is something completely different. Um, Now I have started coaching. Um, I've got quite a few people now who are being coached for ADHD, mainly adults, in fact, primarily adults. And this screen's hiding my bottom bit there. Well, let's move that out of the way. That's better. Um, I'm a neurodiverse trainer and an advocate. The training that I do tends to be going into businesses. I've got one lined up on the 22nd of September over in Leeds, and I've also done one in Leeds as well in June, sorry, actually. Right. This gives you a bit of an insight into what I did at the business in May, June time. And I wanted to share this with you briefly because obviously there's only so much I can cover today. There are other areas that I can cover. So if there's anything on this slide that you'd like to know more about, I could do other follow-up sessions as well. I was asked to go into the business to raise awareness amongst staff, amongst colleagues, amongst managers, about how to communicate better with people who are neurodiverse and also customers. Their business is designed mainly around doing things online, and um, things online don't always work for everybody. Some people are better at it than others. And I think COVID was a classic time when children realized I'll learn really well this way or I don't. And I think we're still picking up the pieces in terms of what was taught or not taught during COVID and the lockdown when it was all online. So at this presentation, I covered masking and the imposter syndrome. That the imposter syndrome is this idea that somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hang on a minute, you're in the wrong job. You need to be moving on. You're not supposed to be here. You're not good enough. Masking is trying to pretend that you're okay and that you're fine in a job when actually you're not. Children masking all the time. I heard a comment from a couple of people about teachers have said, well, you can't have ADHD, so and so, because you can't mask ADHD. I was shocked by that comment. I put it to Poppy, and Poppy was equally shocked. She said that when you've got ADHD, you have to mask. You're masking all the time, and it's exhausting, and it creates burnout, and it creates all sorts of mental health issues too. At this presentation, we looked at the idea of overwhelm, the difficulties with meeting deadlines, bit of a nightmare when you have an ADHD brain. Distraction, huge issue. When you're working in an office, it's not always easy to deal with. Task initiation basically means getting started. It's that blank page syndrome. Being disorganized. Psychological sunburn. I love this concept because it very briefly is this idea that people are very touchy, and they've built this up over time. So if, for example, somebody patted you on the back and you didn't have sunburn, you wouldn't even notice. If you have sunburn, it hurts like anything. And that's what psychological sunburn is like as well. Somebody can say something to you and you just overreact, or you react in a way because it's been chipping away at you for such a long period of time. Spoon theory. I won't go into detail about that, but it's a really interesting theory to understand how adults and children very quickly get burnt out during the day, depending on how many spoons they've used in that day. Brain fog, a lot of people might be able to relate to that. Brain dumps, that made people chuckle, but having a good old brain dump is very useful in managing neurodiversity in general. I covered the whole process of choosing a job, job interviews, and holding down a job. Now, you'll notice that some things on here are in red because they are going to be touched upon this evening. So, what's in this session? I alluded to this on Facebook, but just to reiterate, first of all, I'll be covering living with ADHD, then linking that with working with ADHD, and finishing off with parenting ADHD. The majority of what I do is living with ADHD, followed by a medium amount for working with ADHD and a little bit more on parenting ADHD. Now, if you're not somebody who is living with ADHD yourself, it will still be useful for understanding if you're working with anybody with ADHD, or you have a child who has it, or you suspect has it. You might have come across a lot of these yourself. Facebook are full of fantastic little quotes, and I've just got a few to share with you, some of them funnier than others. I'll let you read that for yourselves. Mhm. And the thing about ADHD, yes, it makes life very, very challenging. but it also comes with great skills. The training and presentation I will be doing in September the 22nd, I'll be going into a building in Leeds called the Platform, which is named very appropriately. It's just above the train station. I'll be talking to a whole gamut of people about promoting employing people with neurodiversity, employing people with ADHD and dyslexia, and ASD, because they are incredibly talented, they're incredibly skilled, and they have amazing qualities and positives, and that's the whole tone of it. So somebody going into a room, who reads the room and everything part of that room makes that person incredibly perceptive. They can read emotions. There are pros and cons to that, obviously. Another one, I'll let you have a read of that one. Ooh. The amount of times that I've had a conversation with Poppy and anybody else that I work with who's got an ADHD brain, they know what you're going to say before you get to the end of it, and they're bursting to tell you and finish your sentence for you. They'll butt in, they'll speak over you, not because they're being rude, it's because they're desperate to go, yep, yep, I know what you're going to say. The brain is working incredibly fast. This one really, really touched me. Um, my daughter found it, and I've had quite a lot of people respond to it. Um, and that I think it's this recognition that women tend to be diagnosed with ADHD in their 30s, their 40s, and beyond. And I find it incredibly humbling to work with people and to meet and talk to people who have gone through their life not feeling quite right, feeling like they're different, wondering why they're struggling. They mask, they work around it, they cope. The tipping point, actually, for a lot of women is the menopause. Because the menopause involves a total chaotic imbalance of hormones, and this is something I come across and talk about this evening, that ADHD is all about hormones, that all of a sudden they can't cope anymore and they become quite desperate. Um, and I think this is just incredibly powerful. So let's start with this first section, living with ADHD. Um, for me, the biggest learning curve is understanding the ADHD brain. And I want to pitch it like that. If you hear me saying the ADHD learner, the ADHD person, forgive me, I don't mean to, because I think that if we think of it as an ADHD brain thing, it helps you feel better about yourself. I'm not suggesting we go, well, wasn't my fault, blame it on my ADHD brain, but it is all about what you see there, the left and the right hand side of the brain, the electrical signals, the neurons that are firing. It's not anybody's fault. It's something that you were born with. And the more we understand it, the more we'll, I don't know, stop beating ourselves up about it. 100% about dopamine. I want to cover what dopamine is because for me, I must say dopamine 100 times a day. It's just absolutely critical to an understanding of how the ADHD brain works. So without getting too technical and too biological, dopamine is a hormone and it's a neurotransmitter. It transmits signals around the body from the brain to the rest of the body. And And I'm hoping, and if you do have ADHD or a child has ADHD, you will find this reassuring that it is genetic. It is something that you're born with. You come pre-built with it. It's just a matter of time to work out whether you have it or whether you don't. Sorry, I just, it will let me move that out of the way? It's very annoying. Um, Hey, that's better. Right, okay. Super important to understand this bit. This particular hormone, I think some people might have heard of serotonin, and dopamine and serotonin can often be confused because they have a lot in common. Serotonin is the happy hormone, the hormone that kicks in when you eat chocolate. Chocolate has chemicals in it that replicate serotonin. That's why so many people go to it as comfort food, especially women. But dopamine also feels like serotonin because it plays a role in how we feel pleasure and rewards. Put that in bold because it's so, so important. If you only remember one thing today, please remember that bit. Dopamine helps us focus. It helps us work towards goals. It helps us find things interesting. So if you have low dopamine, you can see how it instantly impacts your ability to be focused, to pay attention, to concentrate, to be bothered with working towards any goals, to be bothered doing anything. If you don't find it interesting, then why would you do it? One machine worked for me. There we go. Oops. It also affects your ability to learn, to be motivated, to sleep. It affects your memory, your response to stress, your mood, your digestion, your digestive system, your ability to process pain, your ability to control nausea and vomiting, and your ability to move. Such an incredibly important, powerful hormone. When you do something that feels good, your brain releases a rush of dopamine. You naturally seek more of that good feeling by repeating the behavior that made you feel good. So I'm guessing you can understand where addictions come from, obsessions come from, compulsions. I want more of that. So this could be, there might be certain food that you just go, oh, that just tasted amazing. Chocolate, classic example of that. Helps explain why we might binge watch our favorite show and become absolutely gutted when it comes to an end. Unfortunately, as well, it can lead to drug overuse and alcohol overuse because it makes us feel good. It releases a rush of dopamine. We get dopamine highs from this. Some last longer than others. Now, if we understand that if you have an ADHD brain, you have very, very low levels of dopamine or none at all. It needs to be regulated. It needs to be steady and consistent rather than highs and lows. Now, that can be done through medication. Right, that word again is in red because I'll be dealing with medication a little bit later on. Two of the most popular medications that are prescribed are Elvance and Concerta. Anybody wants to know more about that medication, I can deal with in the Q&A at the end, or if you feel like it's more of a personal thing, you'd rather do it one-to-one, I'm more than happy to talk about that. Poppy's on Elvance. I'm not a mum who would ever opt to quickly medicate my children, never have, but it's been life-changing. It really has. But it's a personal choice. It really is. Dopamine can be found in food. Here, just some examples of dopamine-rich foods, and they include chicken, salmon, eggs, almonds, apples, green leafy vegetables, green tea, tomatoes, strawberries, bananas, watermelon, turmeric, and dark chocolate. Lots of healthy foods in there, which may be good news or bad news, depending on your perspective. So if you are very anti-medication, then just know that it can be boosted through food as well. So The dopamine kick. The ADHD brain, as I've said, is all about having a shortage of dopamine. It has to create it. It needs something to boost it. Where are you going to get your ADHD from? Is it from food? Is it from alcohol? Is it from drugs? Is it from medication? And are there other things that you can do to boost dopamine and give your brain a dopamine kick? And this leads on to a whole discussion about procrastination and task initiation. How do you stop yourself putting it off, putting it off, putting it off? How do you get started in the first place? The more tasks that you can tick off, the more it kicks dopamine. You may have felt it yourself, that it's so satisfying when you get a job done. And what's happening there is you get a dopamine rush, and then you might go, "Oh, I'll do something else now." We have to, if you do have an ADHD brain, you have to trick the brain into doing the first step by putting a reward at the end of it. Now, what that reward looks like is completely down to the individual. A reward might be somebody knowing that somebody will say thank you to you. It might be promising yourself a chocolate bar. It might be promising yourself to go on your phone and just scroll on Facebook. Rewards can look different to different people. Procrastination, putting things off. That image on screen there is what the ADHD brain looks like. It's got so many things, so much chaos going on. Another example, it's like a bunch of post-it notes in your head, butterflies. This next bit looks at how to overcome the urge to avoid. Procrastination is such a big issue with the ADHD brain. It deserves a slot in itself. The blame game. So some people with an ADHD brain tend to blame themselves for not doing something. They beat themselves up about it. And it can cause a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of upset. The difficulties that people with ADHD brains have are mostly invisible to others. That's where the masking comes in, the coping comes in. But it's important to know that procrastination is not laziness. And please, if you do know somebody who procrastinates or you procrastinate yourself, please feel reassured that you're not doing it deliberately to be annoying, to be lazy. It's a signal to the brain saying that the environment is wrong. So if you're trying to get something done, it's your environment that isn't right. Now, as you can imagine with children in school, it becomes an impossible situation. Again, that's in red because we'll be looking at environment a little bit more later on. The ADHD brain nervous system is different to neurotypical brain. For example, rather than a parent saying to a child, "I want you to do this," they should say to themselves, "I need to understand why you're not able to do this." And there's a real seed change there. Again, we'll be coming to that shortly later to look at parenting ADHD. None of the issues are to do with will. There's not a lack of will. I really, really, really want to do this. I feel so much better when it's done. I just can't do it. And this is where the ADHD brain and the neurotypical brain differ. It's importance versus interest. The neurotypical brain works on importance. When something's important, they will do it. However, the ADHD brain is motivated by the level of interest they have in the task. If it's not interesting, or they're not passionate about it, or it isn't super urgent, their brain will say, "No, not doing it." Is there cake at the end of it? This goes back to that idea about interest and reward. Is there
Mhm.
something amazing when you've done that spreadsheet, for example? Well, no, it's just a spreadsheet that you don't, right, I don't want to do it then. We're looking at admin later. Find a way to accept you do things differently to others. Just accept that. And I think just accepting that will make you feel so much better about trying to fit in that square peg in a round hole. Why do I feel like this world isn't made for me? It's because you do things differently. It will take me more time. Accept that. I will have a roundabout way of doing things. It's my way. It might not be straightforward. Might take much longer, but it's my way of doing it. Be realistic. A neurotypical, for example, thinks that they can achieve on average 13 things in one day. The ADHD brain will list out loads of things to do, but will struggle to start any of them. They might wake up in the morning and go, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. What actually gets done is very, very different. Let go of your expectations. We all know that if you have high expectations of anything, you're just going to leave yourself feeling so disappointed. Let go of those expectations. Catch and manage your own ableism. Think about, what am I able to do? What is realistic? Right. Well, let's just aim for that then. We are the worst judge of ourselves. We push and we push, and this can only lead one way. And I'm sure you all know of somebody who's experienced this burnout. It might be, well, it can look like lots of things. It might be going to bed early. It might be shutting the blind. It might be just sitting and flicking through Facebook. It might be flicking through the TV channels. Find what is good for you and stick to that because it works for you. Here's another Facebook thing that I found that I think resonated with a lot of people with ADHD brains. Again, I'll let you read it for yourself. When I read that, I see it as a positive.
Yes.
People with ADHD brains care. They care too much. They are incredibly sensitive and very, very perceptive. And that is, again, is something that I will be looking at. It's got a word to go with it, which when I found out what it was, I thought, my goodness, that explains so much. Task initiation is inextricably linked with procrastination. The difficulty for the ADHD brain is that most tasks, if they're not just one thing to do, one step, it's a bit of a nightmare. For example, replying to an email. You think, well, hang on a minute. Replying to an email is one step, but to the ADHD brain, it isn't. It involves, right, I've got to stop what I'm doing. I've got to remember where I've put my phone. I need to go get it. If it's in my bag, have I got to unzip it? Where's my bag? Where's it in my phone? Can't find it in my bag. Oh no, there it's there. Don't panic. You've got to put your username in. If you're lucky, it will default to that. You've got to put your password in. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to remember what my username and password is. I better use a password that is the same every time, otherwise I'll forget what it is. And then I have to reset my password. Oh, I've given up by then. I have to wait for it to load. The whole process, therefore, is not one step. It's 15 or more steps. Even before you start the email, reading it all the way through, getting bored by the end of it, remembering what you're supposed to do, remembering to reply to it. Oh, I'll do it later. You know it won't get done. So when you've got a task, accept that it isn't just one step. Break it down into small steps and do one step at a time. The moment you start the first step, the ADHD brain will say to itself, well, we're doing it now. We might as well finish it. You get that, you get that momentum going once you get on that first step. Put things in your way to encourage you to do it. So if you think, right, I need to be able to answer that email, it's on my phone, put the phone in front of your face. If you need to go do something with the car, put your car keys somewhere in your way. Put things in your way to encourage you to do it. Time blindness is another really, really big issue, which can cause procrastination. It can cause task initiation. It can cause you social embarrassment by being late, by missing deadlines, by rushing everything. And I love this whole idea. The ADHD brain does not quite understand how time works. Knowing that will hopefully make a lot of you feel so much better about the difficulties you have with time. When the neurotypical brain thinks of now, tomorrow, in a week, in a month, in a year, different areas of the brain light up. It's been proven to be that way through scanning. The ADHD brain, however, only understands now and not now. That's it. That's all it understands. So if it's not now, why are you asking me to do it? I was talking to somebody today who was given some homework at the beginning of the school holidays. Oh, you've got 6 weeks to do it. Has it been done? No, because it's not now. It's not now, so it's not going to get done. But going back to the previous point, what makes the ADHD brain do something? Is it interesting? Am I passionate about it? Or is it urgent? Oh my God, it's urgent. It's due tomorrow morning. All right, I've got to do it. And that will get the job done. Not very well. The ADHD brain needs help with time blindness and time paralysis. Another brilliant image. Setting alarms on your phone is something we're going to come across in a second. It works only if you don't get really annoyed by them. But breaking it down minute by minute by minute can be so, so helpful to understand time elapsing. So things that help time blindness, color-coded blocks. For example, you might have an app or a document where you block out things. So personal time is in red, driving time is in yellow. Color is really effective for the ADHD brain. Having visual times helps. For example, try timing a task to find an average to help you plan your day. So if you think, right, how long does it take me to get ready? Well, I can do it in 40 minutes. Right. Well, there's my 40-minute slot. How long does it take me to get from my bedroom out the house into the car and off the drive? Well, it takes me a good 10 minutes once I've sorted the dogs out and tidied the kitchen up and picked something up and gone back for my car keys because I've forgotten where they've put them. Put your car keys with your shoes. You know, you're going to be putting your shoes on. Alarms. Love them or hate them. If they work, set alarms for each step. Have breakfast alarm. Oh, my alarm's gone off. I need to have finished my breakfast by now. Oh, now it's time to get ready. Now I should be ready. Now I need to get in the car. If alarms send you into avoidance, it's not a good idea to use them. Any strategy that you're given, or any individual is given, trial them. If they don't work, move on to something else. Post-it notes, stick post-it notes everywhere. They're brilliant. Get some decent ones with a decent stick on them. And it's very satisfying. It'll give you a dopamine rush when you screw that note up and you chuck it in the bin. There are lots and lots of ADHD apps and ADHD-friendly apps out there. That's, again, it's in red. Got a list to share with you. You can program them to tell you when you have to do something. It's like having a personal assistant that will nag you, that the ADHD brain often responds really, really well to because they don't trust themselves to do it. Again, a brilliant idea, body doubling. Not perhaps what you might think. Never work alone. Always have someone else in the room who is being productive. Other people's productive energy is contagious. You might not have the dopamine, but you ride on theirs. Have accountability buddies, people who check in on you and it will call you out. The little nagging voice, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done that? Although it might be quite irritating, it will help keep you motivated. And knowing that you're accountable, it's a bit like Weight Watchers. Knowing that you are going to be weighed will be that little voice in your ear going, don't eat that or do eat this. Multiple work streams. Have side quests. Allow yourself to work on different things. Keep it fresh. The ADHD brain is actually really good at multitasking, having several things on the go at once. And that is a good thing. These are called side quests. You've got a main job to do, but you've got other side quests, other jobs to do that you will go, right, I'm going to stop that bit and go to that one. Break down the day into lots of things. Keep riding on dopamine. Work on things that are your passion. Remember, dopamine comes with completing tasks, ticking off those tasks. Stick to the times you give your side quests. Don't get distracted. Set an alarm. Find clever ways to get side quests in, but that don't last all day. Energy cycles. We all have good times of day and bad times of day. Think about when yours might be. Are you an early bird? Are you a night owl? Are you just an exhausted pigeon? Is it before lunch because you see lunch as a reward? Is it after lunch because you've had that energy dopamine boost, depending on what you've been eating, or a treat, a reward? You need to do things that you dread when you're full of energy. Don't leave them. Well, sometimes people work. If you're a night owl, do it late at night. If you're an early bird, do it early in the morning. Eat something nice, then go, right, now I'm going to do it. But don't do it when you're lacking in energy. After that, schedule in something light. So you've got something done that you dreaded doing. The next thing that you do, it's something dead easy that you can do with your eyes shut. When you have breaks, trick yourself into believing that you are still doing something. So when you have a break, you might listen to some music, watch something on TV, do some adult colouring in, do a jigsaw, whatever it looks like for you. This goes back to the importance of the environment, getting the right environment. If you are procrastinating, it's a sign that your environment is not the right place. Find collaborations with people who can understand you and prod and poke you. Working with people who know that how you work, what works best for you and what doesn't work best for you, and keeping a sense of humor about it, they can be supportive to you. Find support when you need it. This could be friends, as long as it works for you. So, conclusions. Procrastination is not laziness. Manage your expectations of your own ableism. Work on little factors. What is it that is making you procrastinate? This could be different each day. This links with what a brain dump is about, which is something that I could cover if anybody's interested another time. Make small adjustments. Self-compassion is key. Be kind to yourself. Accept, lower your expectations. Resources that I wanted to recommend. The Chimp Paradox is absolutely brilliant by Professor Steve Peters. I've met him before I was a professor. I forgot what it was before that. Everything that I've been talking about is in his book. He just doesn't call it the ADHD brain, but he does a lot with how the brain works and rewards, the reward system. I've been recommended the other book called Atomic Habits, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. That's been recommended by ADHD experts, ADHD brain, people with ADHD brains. I've recommended that. There are, if you go on Amazon, you can get ADHD planners that have been designed to play to the ADHD brain strengths. There are lots of apps. You may recognize some of these. You've got Timo, Reminders. I think Reminders comes as standard on a lot of Apple phones. Our Stack, Remember the Milk, Todoist, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware of the Google Calendar. You can set alarms, set reminders, organize your life on that thing. Whiteboards. Whiteboards are fantastic. They allow you can put one in your bedroom, put them where you know that you will look a lot. Wiping things off your whiteboard will give you that dopamine rush. Hi, darling. I'm not quite ready yet. I'll give you a shout. Oh, sorry. Oops. Go, John Poppy. Post-it notes. They're always handy. And having other people to support you, friends, accountability buddies, not easy to say, and body doublers. Key takeaways. If we can all help raise awareness and advocate, then it will make life a lot better for a lot of us. And it'll help people feel more comfortable in their own skin. It is genetic, it is dopamine. The importance of reward, interest, small steps, management and management of it and the various ways that you can manage it. Work with your energy cycles, be compassionate, love yourself as much as you love a friend. Oh, sorry. And recruitment. And procrastination is not laziness. Okay, I'm just going to pause for 2 minutes. I am conscious I'm going slightly over time, although it's still 8:15. I'm just going to get myself a quick drink. Then this bit is a little bit shorter. If you just give me 2 minutes, I'll be right back and we'll look at what it's like working with ADHD or working with somebody who has ADHD. So I'll be back in literally 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for bearing with me. So, working with ADHD. Sorry about the background noise. You can tell I'm in a house with dogs. Um, when I saw this quote by the lady who was talking about this at the presentation, it reminded me of the issue with menopause that ADHD in adults can feel like early onset dementia. It feels like you're just getting brain fog all the time. And that's quite an interesting idea that when you are diagnosed with something, um, it can often take your eye off something else. So if you go to the doctor and they go, well, it's just early onset menopause or it's menopause, you can get brain fog. Oh, right, well, that's what it is. When actually, yes, it might be menopause, but it might also be ADHD as well. When somebody's diagnosed with ASD, then everything else can get overlooked. They might have ADHD as well. Dyslexia is also another classic example. We have to accept that dyslexia, ADHD, ASD, they all have a buddy. They all have something else that goes with it. There are lots of what are called comorbidities. And again, there's something else off Facebook that I thought was very relevant. There might be quite a lot of people that can relate to that. It's like, can't believe I've just read this 20 times. It still hasn't gone in. So, some questions and thoughts that can keep you awake at night when it comes to working with ADHD. What's wrong with me? Why does something that should take me a few hours take me a few days? Can't have ADHD. I'm an adult. I graduated and I have a good job. What happens if my boss finds out and they use it as an excuse to criticize me? What if my colleagues find out and they are unempathetic? Um, Admin comes with a lot of jobs, and this has been dealt with specifically. It might be home admin as well, not just necessarily in the office, anything to do with paperwork. It doesn't bode well with the ADHD brain because it's painfully boring. It requires zero interest, dread doing it. It makes people procrastinate, which could often mean bills aren't paid. End up doing it late at night to force yourself to get it done. It's that idea of urgency. And then you can't sleep because it's banging around your head. It will mean that you either lack attention to detail, which causes mistakes, or you can become hyper focused, which means it takes way longer than it should do. Yeah, prone to making mistakes. What helps? What helps in the workplace? Having questions before an interview. This is the link to the idea about recruitment and something that I will be pushing forward on the 22nd. It might be an argument that people are getting an unfair advantage, but if anybody who's neurodiverse, knowing what's coming up allows them to properly prepare for it, and it's a win-win for everybody. Everybody gets something better out of the situation. It was advised at this event in July that, should you tell your employer that you are neurodiverse, that you have an ADHD brain? The suggestion was to disclose it to your employer after completing your probation period to protect yourself from any potential discrimination. Shouldn't happen, isn't allowed to happen, but we all know that it could happen. Help others help you. Share with others how your neurodiversity impacts you and how you thrive, what works for you. Because if you don't, they may end up going to Dr. Google. And we know that Dr. Google isn't always accurate or helpful. It's better to come from you as an individual to understand your own idiosyncrasies. Work with your brain, not against it. Find different ways of working. For example, people who are neurodiverse or have an ADHD brain are fantastic problem solvers. Allow yourself to work with others. Delegate. We all have our strengths. We all have our trade-offs. For important tasks, book a meeting room, block out your calendar to manage the noise levels. A bit more on procrastination. This is known as productive procrastination. So you need to do the laundry and you also need to pay a bill, but you don't want to pay the bill, so you do the laundry instead. Result, you're still being productive. Choose easier tasks that offer a sense of accomplishment and use what's called gamification techniques when you feel you're struggling with procrastination. Now, gamification is when you incorporate game-like elements into non-game contexts. There's something about gaming that is really, really attractive and appealing to the ADHD brain. For example, games use progress bars and streaks. You can use that technique to monitor your task completion. Divide large tasks into smaller steps. That's what games do. Use a timer to foster a sense of urgency and help maintain focus. When you play games, you can see the timer ticking away. Do the same with a task that you're struggling to get done. Earn points or rewards after completion. Get that dopamine rush. Use colour and visual cues. Involve others. A lot of gaming is done online, it's done collaboratively. There's an element of competition. Some people thrive on competition, even if it's just a case of competing with sorry, I've just got some people trying to get in. Just realised some people trying to get in. Excuse me a second, I hadn't realised. Oops. Can't see them. Sorry about this, guys. Back to share. Here we are back again. Oops. Right. There is such a thing as the Disability Confident Employer Scheme. This scheme allows you to apply for extra time. It guides you towards access to work grants. It's you can get a coach and you can get access to assistive technology that is paid for you. Disability Confident Employer Scheme promotes getting interview questions beforehand. And a bit more on the access to work grants. Yeah, you can have a coach to help you work out how to make your job a bit easier for yourselves. Co-coaching is the idea of mediating between the employer and the employee who can help you work out how you can both work better together, working to your strengths and working around your challenges. Access to work grants can also fund assistive technology, and you can also apply for flexible working hours. Those bits are in red: coach, co-coaching, and awareness training. That's something that I'm going to be starting to be doing over the next few weeks, which I'm really looking forward to. What you and your employer can do: you can join a union, you can connect with people on social media, you can connect with people in the workplace, you can partner with other organizations, and you can ultimately create a neurodiverse friendly environment. So just to recap, we don't need to be on all the time. Find it very easy to be hard on ourselves. It's never too late to change careers. Work with your ADHD brain, use your ADHD skills, use ChatGPT. You may have discovered the possibilities and limitations of that. And there's a really good website called adultingadhd.com. Finally, then, to finish off, this is the quickest bit: parenting ADHD. This is what the ADHD brain can look like. Bunch of post-it notes. This is something I alluded to earlier, that the ADHD brain often has three things going on. They seek perfectionism, they are people pleasers, and they suffer, I'll use the word suffer, rejection, sensitive dysphoria. Just to go into that in a little bit more detail, somebody with rejection sensitive dysphoria feel devastated by real or perceived criticism. They struggle with perfectionism or people pleasing. They avoid situations where they feel judged or rejected. There can be sudden withdrawal or outbursts after receiving feedback. They feel an intense shame, embarrassment, or failure, and they have difficulty with regulating emotions. If you know any child with an ADHD brain, you may recognize quite a lot of those symptoms in them, or certainly their teachers might see it too. When you're dealing with a child with ADHD, consider that you have a window of tolerance yourself. What you can manage, think about what you can manage at the time. Remember that they might be hyper aroused or hypo aroused. Hyper aroused means hyper. Hypo means it can be quite lethargic. And there's no bandwidth of tolerance there, that you're either up or down. There's nothing in the middle. Co-regulation: a regulated adult and a regulated child is the ideal. A dysregulated adult who is tired, irritable, had a long day, had a stressful day, and a dysregulated child can lead to chaos. And I'm sure I don't need to tell that to a lot of people. When you're dealing with an ADHD child who is having difficulty emotionally regulating, be curious, not furious. What is it that I'm seeing here in their behavior? What can I do differently? Easier said than done, I know. But again, this advice that I was given at this event. Win language, win standing for something. I wonder if the reason why you are angry is because I imagine it's really hard for you. I noticed that. And it is all about trying to address that dysregulation, emotional ups and downs, and struggling. This would also be very, very appropriate and applicable for ASD as well. Connection seeking, not attention seeking. The more dysregulated they become, the more they need you, even if they don't seem to need you. When you least think they need a hug, that is probably when they need that hug. Behavior is communication of an unmet need. Take time to regulate. Go off and do something and come back before dealing with a child who is dysregulated. The 5 C's: control over yourself, compassion. Remember, you've had a tough day, you survived it. Collaboration, important to work with others. Consistency, always stick to your boundaries, always have non-negotiables. And celebration, celebrate the wins. And as Maya Angelou famously said, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. Meditation was recommended as a way with dealing with the ADHD brain. Highly recommended a Buddhist retreat, walking in nature, and just breathing. Medication. The ADHD brain is like a weak Wi-Fi signal. Things get frustratingly slow, jumpy, unreliable, and unpredictable. Medication regulates that. And finally, key takeaways: chaotic brain, rejection sensitive dysphoria, co-regulation, win language, behavior is communication, and the 5 C's. Thank you for bearing with me, everybody. I'm very mindful I've run over by 2 minutes and we haven't had the Q&A. I am mindful that whenever we have Q&A, people can be quite reluctant to ask questions because they don't want to delay it any further. It's very personal. I'm mindful that what I've talked about is very personal to individuals, but I do have one question that's already come up in advance, which I've been given the okay to mention, which I'll quickly mention now. How can you tell people you have an ADHD brain? As people don't understand, it'll be like, oh, any excuse, blame ADHD. I think this comes down to educating others. I think if we accept that people think they know what ADHD is, but don't, we should advocate for ourselves. We should raise awareness. We should tell them what works for us, keep our sense of humor. And also, if we're thinking about, should we tell our bosses, wait for that probationary period to be over, and then you can feel comfortable in knowing that you should and will be supported. Do we have any other questions that anybody would like to ask at this stage? Remember as well, please feel free to message me with any individual questions, but there might be a question you want to ask that you feel other people would benefit from as well.
Hi, Michelle, it's Darren.
Hello, Darren.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
When you said the dopamine levels,
Yeah.
would you be able to just approach your GP and ask him to do a blood test or something? How do you find that out?
Yeah, blood tests can show that. I know that when my daughter was diagnosed, they found out they understood her dopamine levels by the questions that they asked, the questions that you answer. And there's a test that they do on the computer where they ask you to click on things. But it can be measured through your blood tests as well.
So what's the possibilities of getting a doctor to do it without having a previous diagnosis?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know whether if you went down to doctors and said, look, I want my dopamine levels checking because I think they're low, whether they go, oh, hang on a minute, we need to backtrack a little bit. That's not an avenue that I've been down. But for me, knowing how powerful and influential dopamine levels are in the way that the brain functions and the body functions, um, it would be something that I would be marching down to the doctor's office to ask. And if they said, well, we wouldn't do it, that would raise questions. I don't think you should be asked to go down the ADHD route just to get that done because it is quite lengthy. I know some
Yeah,
people have been waiting 18 months for a diagnosis. My daughter waited 18, 19 weeks. Um, and that's because we filled in all the documents and all the paperwork beforehand and sort of fast tracked our way through it. So the more armed you go, as you probably know, when you go to doctors, the more information you go down armed with, the better response that you'll get. So definitely worth trying that. It's a really interesting question.
Actually, Michelle, just to follow on from that, um, because I my diagnosis came back, it very sort of confusing. On one hand, they were saying I had all the traits of ADHD, but then they actually said it was down to extreme low self-esteem that it mimicked ADHD.
Ah,
Can
right.
I? So I wasn't happy with the diagnosis because I felt that they rushed it. A lot
Yeah.
of it was done over the telephone. So could I then now? I'm thinking now, could I go to the doctors and say, can you test my dopamine levels? Because I felt that that wasn't. They won't test me again, you see, on the
Yeah.
NHS. So I'd probably have to do it privately. But they said they won't test me again for ADHD because they have already tested me.
Ooh.
Have you, so did you go through the whole, is that Debbie?
Yes,
Hi, Debbie. Sorry, I recognize your voice. So are you, so sorry, have you actually gone through the whole process of having the diagnosis from doing all
yes,
the online
yes.
stuff?
Yeah. And I was told that I had all the traits of ADHD, but the final doctor, the specialist who actually gave a phone call to me and discussed it with me, she did the last meeting on the phone and then came back with a diagnosis that I didn't have ADHD. I had some traits of ADHD, but she felt I had extreme low self-esteem because of all the trauma in my life.
Right.
Ooh.
It sounds like a huge, so it goes back to this idea about things masking other things. You know, that
Yes.
undiagnosed ADHD can cause huge anxiety. So it
Yes,
seems
well,
very
the anxiety is
short-sighted,
what I've
doesn't it?
lived with all my life.
Yeah.
So, and I've masked a lot through anxiety.
Yeah.
Whereas, so I've recognized so much of what you've said in this Zoom meeting today. Yeah, it's been really, really interesting.
Oh,
So thank
good.
you.
I
Thank you.
think it's definitely worth going down to your doctor and saying, is there something else that can be done to check my dopamine levels? Because I hate the fact that you are being ruled out of having another diagnosis.
Yeah, when you
When
said that, the blame it on something else, or like maybe you're going through the menopause or
yeah,
whatever. This
yeah,
is, they've always used that excuse that it's due to the trauma that why I've had these reactions, why I behave in this way. Even from my childhood, how I behaved in my childhood that showed that it was possible ADHD and that everything was the same. They just, because I've had trauma from such a young age and all the way through my life, they've just said it's because of all the trauma.
yeah,
But as I explained, as I argued, I didn't realize it was trauma at that young age. I grew up with it.
yeah,
So, how can
yeah,
you say
absolutely.
it's trauma?
From my experience of doctors and on the journey that we've been on, certainly with Poppy, Poppy had a hard time going to the dentist. A lot of that was to do with her ADHD, had a fear of flying, and she asked one doctor if she could be, that the ADHD specialist said to consider going to this so and so dentist because they're very um good with working with people who are neurodiverse and considered taking diazepam. She went to one doctor,
God.
and he said, nope, absolutely no way. And if you go anywhere else, they'll think you're an addict. She went
Yeah.
back to she told the person at the ADHD 360. They said that's completely wrong. What are they talking about? She went back to the doctors for another reason, mentioned it to them, and went, well, of course, you've got ADHD. You are going to suffer from anxiety and issues at the dentist and things like that. And she got prescribed it. So it does not feel like a lottery with doctors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's another whole can of worms, isn't it, really? But yeah,
It
thank you
is,
for
yeah,
answering that, my love.
no problem. Any other questions? Great. All right,
I've
guys,
got a
thank you.
question.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
sorry.
that was really last minute. I was just going to say, I think it's really tricky, isn't it, with medication and when you've got different comorbidities going on and knock-on effects
Yeah,
each other, which we have a problem with our son, because we haven't got it quite right at the minute. Is
yeah.
there anything, all of those foods, actually, he's really good on.
Oh, great.
So he's really good at all of those foods, really. But is there anything that anybody would know of, like herbal things maybe that you can just add in that are good, anything else for dopamine?
I did wonder that. That's something that I'd like to look into. Is that Jill?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, no, that because I think that obviously going through your diet, it's a slower process into get into your bloodstream. But you'd hope there's some kind of alternative out there that will do it. So definitely something that I'll put on my list of things to research for sure. But
We've
you're right. I think
we've had to go with the magnesium.
right.
It's not uh had a massive effect as yet, but I know some people have said like magnesium really helps them. So I suppose it's just trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's how long it takes to get into your system as well. I know that certainly with ADHD medication, you got the slow release and you got fast release. So it's some of it you've got to be patient with and keep with. Some of it is instantaneous, and it's finding out what works for you. And I think it's right as well that when they're prescribing any medication, they've got to be careful about what other medication that you're on,
Mm.
because it's all hormonal. And you can
Yeah.
get those contraindications, can't you, too?
Mm.
All right, guys, we'll finish there. If anybody's got any questions in the meantime that come up, if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint, if you could message me on Messenger or WhatsApp, then I'll send it all out as soon as I possibly can. I think some people have already asked for that because they couldn't make it today, but there may be people who have been here today would like a copy. So if you haven't already requested it, let me know and I'll send it straight over. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and thanks so much for giving up such a big chunk of your time. And again, let me know as well if there's any other sessions that you'd like me to put on.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.